Hi there. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and just stop? You have no idea why you walked into that room? Or here's another one. You're mid-sentence and a basic word that you normally know just vanishes. Or, and this one's my favorite one, right? You're speaking to someone you know and you suddenly blank on their name. Yeah, welcome to midlife fog. And before you start to Google early onset dementia at 2 a.m., I want to tell you something, that these conditions and these feelings, they are real, it's common, and it's not what you think it is. Welcome to Faith in the Fog. My name is Isoken Aderile, and in today's video, I'm going to reintroduce a topic that I've been speaking a lot about lately, namely midlife fog. In this video, what I'm going to walk us through today is learning to name what's actually happening in our bodies, in our brains, describing what midlife fog actually is, as well as what it isn't, right? And how it shows up, and how we, women who are going through midlife and perimenopause, how we can track our patterns so we understand what type of fog is showing up and what we can do about it. So what's actually happening? I want to look at this from a scientific perspective, just as we start. Not to be academic, but because knowing about what's actually occurring at a biological, physiological level can help us navigate this season with more clarity. Now, I must say that this is basic science for me. I'm not a scientist, but I spent some time reading around this topic based on my own symptoms so I could understand what was going on in my body. But I will say, and I'm really glad for the onset of social media and technology at large. And what I will say is there are a lot of experts out there that are beginning to share more information about what's going on in our body. So you have a lot of information available to you. So this is my take about my understanding about what's happening to us women at this particular stage of life. So midlife fog happens when the big three, estrogen, progesterone, and cortisol starts to dip. So they're the big three. Personally, I also like to add testosterone because I found that personally my testosterone levels were well below normal levels for women at my age. So I'm going to talk through each of the big three individually first. Now, estrogen, as we know, it's not just for reproduction, right? It's not just for your ability to have babies. It actually fuels our brain. And so estrogen, that hormone, helps us handle memory, focus, verbal recall, and emotional regulation. So when it dips in our 40s, your brain literally has less of that hormone to function, right? So it's its fuel, but it has less of that fuel to run on. And this is why you sometimes find that you forget words, you lose your train of thought, or you feel like your mental sharpness has dulled a little bit. Now for progesterone, progesterone is the calming hormone. It's the hormone that supports sleep and helps regulate anxiety. So when it drops in our, for some people, late 30s, so late 30s, 40s, and 50s, when it starts to drop, you might notice that you become more irritable, your sleep is terrible, or you're feeling more anxious than you normally would. And of course, we know that poor sleep directly impairs memory and cognitive function. So when you have a dip of progesterone, it means that the fog for you will get thicker. Now, the third of the big three is cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone, right? And if you've been running on adrenaline for years, like I have, your cortisol system will get really wonky. Or I can rephrase, it can get wonky. High cortisol levels impairs memory, decision making, and it can have an impact on your blood sugar, which then affects your energy levels and your focus. So when those big three are depleted or beginning to be depleted, you have brain fog, you can have fatigue, forgetfulness, emotional volatility, difficulty concentrating, and a general sense that you're operating at less than you were. So you're operating maybe at 60% when you used to run at 100, 200, 300%. So with those hormones depleting, midlife can amplify this general feeling of not having it all together, because we're not just dealing with hormones. For many of us in midlife, we're also dealing with increased responsibilities. We have aging parents, we have teenagers, we've got career pressures, and we've also got financial stress, right? So you think about all the things that we're carrying. And at this juncture, quite frankly, the nervous system is just taxed, right? Your sleep is compromised, your body is trying to recalibrate through all of these changes, physiological changes, as well as the weight of the things that you're carrying through midlife. So we've defined what midlife fog is and what the impact of those hormones, what the impact they have on us. I want to talk a little bit about what it is not, okay? Just to be clear, especially for us high functioning women who are so used to doing so many things at a high sort of capacity and speed. So in this phase of midlife, it's not incompetence, it's not laziness, it certainly isn't early dementia, and it's not the end of your sharp years. What we're facing is a physiological transition that affects the body and the brain in measurable ways. So I want to talk about how midlife fog can show up, especially for women who are naturally high functioning. So a few examples, at least some that I've experienced. You can experience sort of forgetting names, blanking in meetings, needing to write everything down. I have a lot of notebooks where I write things down, and I say if it's not written in a notebook, then maybe I won't remember. So that's one way it can show up. Another way it can show up is taking a lot longer time to make decisions, because it's like you need extra to process all of the decision-making steps that you would naturally have taken, maybe in minutes or seconds. You're finding that you're taking a longer time to make that decision. You might also be feeling less confident in your expertise. So if you're a high-functioning woman, you're an expert in your area of your career, your business, homemaking, whatever it is, you might find that you're feeling less confident in those areas that you normally had high expertise. Another one is feeling bone tired or exhaustion, extreme exhaustion, even after a full night's sleep. You might find that you're snapping at people or increased irritability for no reason. And then maybe you're overwhelmed by routine tasks that you could do generally very easily with your eyes closed. You find that it's taking a lot more time and you're overwhelmed by those simple tasks. Another way it shows up is through difficulty concentrating. And another one, which I've been talking about lately, is withdrawing from people and isolating yourself because everything feels like there's too much effort, right? So these are some ways that midlife fog can show up. So I want you to pay attention to those things. If they're showing up for you, pay attention to those instances. So we've talked about what it is, we've talked about what it isn't, we've talked about how it can show up. Now, what can you do to track the fog? And what do you need in order to handle this? So again, not very scientific, not very academic, but you really need data. You need to understand what's showing up, when it's showing up, right? Just imagine you go to your doctor and you're trying to explain what you're feeling, and you say, well, I've been feeling foggy. That's difficult for a doctor to treat, right? So being able to identify specific patterns and specific trends a lot easier, and certainly will help you in your conversations with your doctor or your primary care physician. So here are a few examples of some things that you could do to help you track and identify your patterns. You can start a simple journal. So you can start tracking in a simple journal. So for example, you can track over a period of 2 weeks. You want to track your energy levels, you want to track your sleep patterns, your cognitive function. So are you feeling sharp, are you feeling foggy, are you forgetful? You also want to track your mood. Now when I talk about energy levels, I'm thinking about things like, are you finding that you need a nap or you're crashing at about 3 p.m.? Is your fog worse? Are you noticing that the fog was worse or a bit more heightened the week before your period, right? So you want to find a way to track over a period of time what trends and patterns are showing up in your body as well as in your mind. So you can use a simple tracker, or you can actually even use an app. There are quite a few apps out there in the market designed for perimenopause and for midlife tracking. I've personally built my own tracking app because I couldn't find something that worked for what I needed it to work. So I'm not a coder, but I've been vibe coding my own perimenopause tracking app over the last few months. And I'm actually testing with a small group of women to see what patterns are showing up. So you can find an app in the App Store, Google Play Store, many places where you can find an app that can help you track your symptoms or the trends that are showing up for you. Now the importance of tracking is that tracking gives you the language and the data that you need to figure out where you are in your foggy journey. Okay, so keeping track. And then when you keep track, so tracking, whether that's in a notebook, in a journal, or in an app, you then take all of that data and bring that data to your doctor. So that enables you that when you go to your doctor, you're not simply saying, oh, I'm tired, right? You can actually put more flesh to your feeling. So rather than saying I'm tired, you can then say something like, oh, I've noticed that over the last week I woke up 3-4 times a night, I was unable to sleep, or I find that my brain fog, it's usually heightened, or I feel more foggy sort of in the afternoons or during my period, etc. So tracking allows you to put language and context to what you're feeling. You can have the conversations with your doctors, and then it gives them a roadmap to check either your thyroid or your hormone levels. This is why it's important that you're tracking. You don't need fancy apps. There are apps available, but you can use a notebook as long as you're taking that information and sharing that information with your doctor, your primary care physician, your hormonal or functional doctor that can help you work through what's showing up for you. Now, once you start tracking, I want you to notice your spillovers. By this I mean I want you to pay attention to how the fog may be affecting other areas of your life. So as an example, does the poor sleep make you more short-tempered at home or at work? Another example, when the brain fog shows up in the afternoon, does it have an impact on your work productivity? Are you finding that you're not able to do as much as you used to do in the afternoons? Another example of checking this spillover is to think about, does the anxiety that you've noticed, does that make you want to withdraw more from your friends? So I've talked about what midlife fog is I've talked about the big three hormones that have an impact: estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, and also testosterone. We mustn't forget that. I've talked about how it can show up. I've talked about giving some examples of where it shows up. And then we've also talked about what you can do to track when it's showing up and the trends that you see. And then of course, taking the patterns and the trends that you see and utilizing that as data that you can use to speak to your primary care physician, your primary care doctor, your hormonal or functional doctor, or even your gynecologist, right? So utilizing that information in conversations that can guide a treatment plan for you. And as I talk about midlife fog and how it shows up in our bodies and changes our bodies, I also look at midlife fog through the lens of faith, right? So I talk about these issues through the lens of faith. And as I was preparing for this YouTube video, I've been thinking and meditating on what the Bible says in Psalms 139, verse 14. This specific psalm says, "I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it well." Now, for those of us in midlife, and for me personally, this is such an encouragement to me, that despite the changes in my body, I know that I am wonderfully made. Now, when you look at the works of God, they're so wonderful. You're out in nature and you look at, the trees, the ocean, the mountains, everything that God created was wonderful. And in the context of this scripture, I know that I am wonderful. I'm a work of God and I'm wonderful. And even in this season of transition, I am reminded that even as my body changes, I am still wonderful. And I hope that this encourages you, that despite the changes your body is going through, you are still fearfully and wonderfully made. You're the masterpiece, the crown of God's creation, and He sees that you are wonderful. And so as I close out, I want to say that, of course, the fog is real. Midlife fog is real, but there is absolutely a path through it. Through understanding what's going on in our bodies, through tracking what's going on in our bodies, through talking with our doctors and even our community about what's going on in our bodies, but also being reminded of who we are in God's eyes and that we're wonderfully made. We have a path through this fog. So I would love to hear from you in the comments about what your fog looks like lately. Please engage, and if you found that this has been a blessing to you, I would like for you to share this with your friends and your networks so that they can be blessed by this as well. I'll see you in the next video, and you take care.